Keith Tebow from FRC Media. Thank you for joining us today. We are in the midst of getting set for the November 3rd state election, and we're spending a lot of time talking to the candidates on the ballot. You know, we see a lot of positions across our state that people are more familiar with than others. We know about our state representatives, our members of Congress. There are a number of races every 2 years that are also involving our county government. We have county commissioners. We have other county positions, including, not this year, including district attorney and also the sheriff of Bristol County. Those two races are not part of the ballot this year. But one of the races that is on the ballot is for Register of Probate and Family Court. And what this position is, it sort of oversees the family court of Bristol County and the probate matters of Bristol County, dealing with divorce and custody issues, child support, as well as on the probate side, wills and guardianship. Currently, the position is actually held by an interim register of probate, former Taunton Mayor Thomas Hoy. So in effect, it is sort of an open seat this year. I'm pleased to be joined now by an independent who's running in the race, Melanie Patenaude Layden. Melanie, thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Keith. Nice to join you.
I appreciate your time. I want to talk a little bit about the position, but before I do that, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and why you're interested in running and why you should be the next Register of Probate.
Well, I live in Taunton. I'm a lifelong Taunton resident. I have two boys who are school-age children, Harrison and Hamilton, and they go to Taunton Public Schools. I've been a practicing attorney for over 25 years. I was used to seeing my father as a practicing attorney for years before I decided to go to law school. When I grew up in Taunton, I went to Taunton Public Schools and then Coyle Cassidy High School. And then I was in the last all-female graduating class of Wheaton College. And then I went to Suffolk Law School and started practicing right after that. And it's been a pleasure to practice not only in Bristol County, but also in Plymouth County, Barnstable County, and Norfolk counties. And I feel that with the amount of experience that I've had over that period of time, I could apply the skills that I've developed and certainly practiced for decades now, as I practiced in those various counties and different departments of the trial court, to the probate and family court, where I have certainly concentrated my practice for over 25 years. This is a 6-year term that we are not just casting a vote for, but in fact hiring a register of probate to run the daily operations of the probate and family court. And I feel that as the only attorney in the race, I do have the experience that would be best applied for this office, which is in fact often considered by me in my mind as a position.
So let me ask you, in terms of your experience, as you mentioned, you're an attorney. Register Hoy is not an attorney. He comes from a political background as a former mayor of Taunton and other political positions. What kind of an edge do you feel that gives you in terms of not only understanding family and probate issues, but just the law in general, and how you can maybe do a better job in representing the county?
Well, oftentimes people come to the probate and family court because there is a matter that is pressing, that is affecting their family in a significant way. And sometimes the probate and family court is naturally the first stop. I feel that with my experience, especially practicing in the district court, where oftentimes some of these matters almost spill over topic-wise, if they happen to arrive in the registry of probate and there is not a particular action that they need to perfectly suit their circumstances, I have the experience to understand where the next logical referral to them would be. I can give an example. These days, it appears that many of the pressing issues, especially with the pandemic, appear to affect families who have a loved one that's suffering from mental illness. And oftentimes it's exacerbated when there are difficult circumstances in their life. Now, sometimes people would come to the probate and family court thinking, well, I've heard someone speak about guardianship, and maybe that's the remedy to solve the situation. But I spent many, many years doing district court mental health commitments. And I understand that sometimes families have urgent needs for treatment that would better be handled by a civil commitment, which is a proceeding that is out of the district court. So I feel that my experience and expertise can help with the staff of the registry of probate as we have people approach us seeking a resolution, and sometimes we might not have the exact remedy that they really need. So the benefit of having the breadth of experience and the depth of my practice that also includes practice in other departments of the trial court, we can send people in a direction that is helpful. Not simply, we're sorry that we can't help you here, but actually help someone find their way to the next best place where they can get their needs actually met.
There are registries in a number of locations across the county. Taunton, of course, I believe New Bedford, Fall River. And is there another location, or those are the three locations?
Fall River and New Bedford, correct.
New Bedford, yeah. So, I mean, how different is it, or maybe difficult possibly to juggle those three offices and overseeing a staff that's, you know, large, that's diverse in those different communities?
Well, I don't think that it's necessarily any more difficult because the files are certainly mostly stored in the Taunton office, which is the main office. So the files float, oftentimes the staff float. Judges certainly rotate between the courthouses. So I wouldn't look at it as problematic that there are three offices of this division of the probate and family court. Bristol County is one of the many divisions. It's the county. And when you hear the term Bristol County Probate and Family Court, basically the duties and the responsibilities of the register are the same as they would be anywhere. It's not as if it encompasses 20 cities and towns. It must be enormous in the amount of responsibilities. Responsibilities are the same as if it was one city or town. That phrase Bristol County refers to the residents of Bristol County, and it simply designates that if they have a problem that is a legal matter that falls within the jurisdiction of the probate and family court, they are likely a person who would resort to the Bristol County Probate and Family Court. But the three offices is a benefit, not a detriment. It allows people to be serviced in different court facilities that may be closer to their home. In the past, there was certainly before COVID-19, an ability to somewhat schedule matters in a form convenient to you. I see problems arising in the scheduling department, as I recently heard that they are going to implement automatic scheduling, which will be something that is done automatically and assigning people court dates, and you're not supposed to have the ability to contact a sessions clerk or try to predetermine where you would have your hearing held. So my experience also says that's a problem that we're going to have to deal with. And it's not a problem so much for the registry staff, but it's a problem for the people who use the court, because transportation becomes an issue for litigants who need to make their way to the courthouse. And I'd like to make sure that as this registry office with its three separate offices functions, that not only is it functioning efficiently, but that it is helping accommodate the needs of the people as they may arise. Not as we say is convenient for us as staff members, but as we need to meet those needs in the manner that they arise.
You know, one of the things about this position and a lot of other positions, primarily like county government, county commissioners, we've talked to some of the candidates in that race. The tasks are pretty finite. They're pretty well structured. And this, of course, you've mentioned that there's a process that is mainly statewide, but you know there are county-wide jurisdictions. You're running as an independent, and you know it is a partisan election. Mr. Hoy is a Democrat. There's no Republican running, but in effect, this is really a nonpartisan position in many ways. In that, as I said, the position is finite in terms of its responsibilities, and there's not really a lot of room for politics, right?
Correct. I certainly have no problem discussing my designation in this race. It turned out to be a benefit with COVID-19 and gaining signatures to designate myself as an independent on the ballot. And this is a fair question because I get this often. People ask, well, what's your real party? I first want to say that with this particular office, and it's unusual that you have an office that is an elective office within the judicial branch of government, but it is an office filled by the voters. The duties are very strictly defined. It's to handle the day-to-day operations that support the probate and family court. So there is no such thing as a platform where you have opinions regarding abortion or sending troops anywhere or hiring of public safety officers or budgets or city bond ratings or building schools, road repairs. None of that is part of this particular job. It is so defined. And in all of my practice, in any of the courthouses or any departments of the trial court, not once have I ever heard them mention or seen what looks to be an inclination or a leaning toward a particular party. So yes, in this race, I am running as independent. Over time, if you would check my voter affiliation, as far as political parties, I've been back and forth sometimes between both parties. I've been independent before, probably most of the time, more in the past. I've been a Republican, registered as Republican. I like being an independent now. I like the ability to walk in a primary election and see where I notice there is the most contested race and pull the ballot for that particular party in the primary. And my theory is, in the end, someone is going to be elected and someone is not. And if I can be part of narrowing down the race as far as candidates who are qualified, who should be in that pool of potential candidates that would be on the final ballot, I like that role. So for this election, I decided to run independent, and I don't know in the past if I've decided to do that, but I am certainly not a coattail voter. I want to make sure there is a qualified person in an office, and it's important to me that people that we elect have the actual skills to work for us. Because if they don't, they're not working for us. But we need someone who's always able to handle the duties and responsibilities of any office or any position. So that's what I look for. And as an independent person who otherwise would be known as enrolled, an unenrolled candidate, I did not want the designation as unenrolled. I asked them if I could be just listed as independent, and they were fine with that, meaning the Secretary of State's office. But I think it's powerful to be able to go and elect to participate in any of the primaries as far as the Democrat race or the Republican race. So that's why I'm now running independent, and it's appropriate for this particular office because this is absolutely a nonpartisan position. The only thing I would care about is what is your legal problem that you're presenting today, and let us just start to figure out how we're going to help solve that.
You did mention some of your priorities as you're running for the position, but is there any specific initiatives you'd like to undertake? I know the interim register has mentioned, better online access for people to gain some information. A lot of that was driven by COVID and other initiatives. So is there anything else you have in mind that can maybe help the office run a little more efficiently?
Mm-hmm. The steps and the road toward innovation is not something that's decided on the local level. All of those steps were predetermined and decided by the administrative office in Boston. There were certain divisions that were selected for the virtual registry, et cetera. And years ago, there was an attempt to really push forward with electronic filing, but I've noticed that it never really met the schedule that they hoped to implement it. And all I can say is that I think that these new virtual means are very convenient and very good options. But I, as a register, want to make sure that I, based on my experience of dealing with the constituents and the voters and anybody from Bristol County, even the lawyers, is that we like and have often relied on that personal service that you get when you go to the courthouse and when you participate in hearings with your presence. If I can just say this, the very first time I entered a probate court was probably when I was a teenager. I went with my father, and it was my first time observing a court hearing. I happened to have that day been introduced to a Judge Casey sitting in Taunton, who coincidentally is the father of now the Judge Casey, who was the Chief Justice of the Probate and Family Court. But I went in and I watched that hearing. I did what I was supposed to do. I was quiet. And I watched the faces of the people there. I watched the judge closely. I watched the litigants, if they were represented by counsel. I watched the lawyers. I watched the people who were seated simply attending the hearing and there to support them. And what I noticed as the common thread is that everybody took the hearing so seriously. And there was definitely emotional investment by everybody in that courtroom in what was going on. And it was pleasing to see a lot of back and forth and exchange and questions from the bench and people having the opportunity to have their voice heard, whether as a litigant they wanted to express it themselves or whether their voice was in fact relayed to the court by their attorney in the fashion that the attorney deemed most appropriate. And then at the end of the hearing, I remember hearing the judge say, "Is that all? Or is there anything else? Anything else, counsel?" And it was just a phrase at the time. But over the years, I've continued to hear that same phrase uttered by the judge at the end of the hearing. And what that says is that the judge is assuring that people have had their day in court. And with the video conferencing now that we have to rely on to make sure that business continues, it's not the same experience of having the ability to show up in a courtroom, to see the judge, to let the judge see you emotionally invested in your case, and to have your voice heard. Before the Zoom hearings were starting, I remember reading online some tips about how to participate in the Zoom hearing. These were meant for litigants. And one of the suggestions was to get in a quiet location, which very well could be your parked car in your driveway, and you use your iPhone and you participate in the Zoom hearing, and it's well lit and it's no interference of TV or any kids in the background. And then I thought to myself, what an unusual experience that must be for someone to have a very emotionally hot issue in their lives dealing with them, themselves or their families, and that it is simply decided in their car, talking in their cell phone. And I know that we have to right now tolerate these conditions. And I think it's good that the court has learned to manage many different aspects of the day-to-day operations virtually and by electronic filing. But I never want to believe that that would be the road that we continue down in the future in place of an in-person experience for the citizens and the families of this county who have very important matters that affect their lives. I want to make sure that I am a registrar who can somewhat hold on to those reins and say, this is an alternative, but I don't want to eliminate that involvement that people have appreciated over time.
Melanie Patenaude Layden, independent, running for Register of Probate in Bristol County. Thank you for your time. Good luck in the election, and hopefully we can talk again soon. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And if I could just ask people if they wouldn't mind sharing my Facebook page, Melanie Patenaude Layden for Register of Probate. Please click it, like it, follow it. And I have a website, which is melanieforprobate.com. Thank you very much, Keith. And thank you, voters. I appreciate your time.
All right, Melanie, thank you again. And thank you for joining us today here on FRC Media. I'm Keith Tebow. Please make a point to vote on November 3rd.